So now I need to great and getting better.
Good, very good, very good. I'm very honored to be speaking to you today.
Oh, likewise, likewise.
How are you? I love your logo, your dobak. Very good. How is everything with you in the pandemic? How are you holding up, sir?
Pretty good. I can't complain.
Good.
Can't complain. You know, my wife and I, we live here in Tampa, Florida, and pretty much I'm just staying safe.
Good.
I have to go to Walmart's or you know, the pharmacy. I wear my gloves. I have my face mask. I have my samurai sword. I have my throwing knives. So
Good. Good, good, very good. I lived in Tampa in around 2000. It was very nice. It's very nice. Very pretty. Good. I like the weather, actually. The weather in Tampa is good most of the year.
Yeah. I love it here. I love it here.
Very good.
So,
very good.
With you?
Everything's good. You know, in New York City, it's a little bit strange. It's a different, but the city's seen ups, the city's seen downs. If you've been around a long time, you've seen the roller coaster of New York City. So it's on the down cycle, and it'll be back. The people of New York are very resilient. So
yes, it's different. You know, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, in East New York, Brownsville. So I lived there all my life for about 60 years, and I've been here now. Well, actually, I've been here about 6 years.
Oh, wow.
So about 61 years I lived in New York.
Good. Well, one of the things I like about Tampa is a lot of New Yorkers. A lot of ex-New Yorkers are in Tampa. There were, at least there were at the time that I was there. So
I'm trying to move from New York to get away from all the crazy.
Yeah, but even before, a lot of retirees and folks that were, you know, New York folks. So it was a little bit of a different mentality. But so let's talk a little bit about you. You grew up born and raised in Brooklyn. At the time that you did, how'd you get involved in the martial arts? I mean, it's you know, again, you know, the availability today, there's martial arts schools on every corner, but it wasn't the case when you were younger, when you were a kid and growing up.
Well, I actually started my first experience with martial arts was in 1957 under the guidance of my father, James Crosson, Reverend James Crosson, who was a hand-to-hand combat instructor in the military.
Wow.
And he would come home on leave and he would show my brother and I little, what he called jiu-jitsu tricks. And from the very first technique that he ever showed me, I can remember that technique. It was like a takedown technique. And at the time, it was fun and games for me. I mean, 3, 4 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. I know I was having fun with Dad, come up, chop him, you know, he picked me up. And as I got older, I never lost interest, you know, 4, 5, 6. I think I was about 5 or 6 years old. And he told me the story. He came in the living room one day. I didn't know he was there, so I had set up some pillows. I may have been a little older, maybe 7, but in any event, I would have a pillow here, pillow there, pillow there. I had my little John Wayne handguns on, you know, with the pearl handles, had them switched around. So, you know, I'm looking around, I say, you guys looking for trouble? So I would pull my guns out and say, we don't need these. And I would hit the pillow and flip it, kick this one, chop that one, bam, and then take my guns and say, you know, behave yourselves. So my father, I didn't know, he was behind me. He was like this. So I thought I was going to get in trouble for beating up the pillows. And he said to me, he said, next time, make it 5 pillows. I said, yes, sir. You know, so that was kind of like the beginning of my training, and I trained up under my father's guidance for, I mean, all my life. He's shown me things, God bless his soul. But at age 8, I started doing a little karate in a cadet corps called the Atlantic Coast Patrol Navy Cadets. And then from there, I got into Shotokan Karate.
Okay.
We're under a gentleman named Richard Green and another gentleman named Mr. Sealy. And it was a few instructors. They at the time might have been like green belts, purple belts, but they would show me different things. And even at that time, I had a friend that was a red belt in Korean Muay Thai.
Oh,
So
sure.
he would show me techniques. I used to read Bruce Tegner books, anything I could get. If I saw a technique, I would try to emulate it or remember what the move was. And I just had this, I didn't know at the time, I had this ability to remember the techniques. If I saw 1, 2, 3, I would practice it a few times and I would remember it. I'll get up in the morning, 1, 2, 3. And even if I wasn't doing it correctly, I would remember the technique. But fast forward years later, I continued to train in Shotokan karate, but at age 11, no, it was before age 11. I'll just, maybe it might be a little bit off, but around age 9, I went to a demonstration and I saw this gentleman doing some crazy stuff. And anyway, long story short, it was Dr. Moses Powell.
Oh, wow.
So I was just so blown away that I approached him. I asked him if I could train under his guidance. And he basically said, we don't really train kids because this is serious stuff.
Sure.
You know, this is not just some, you know, kiddie karate thing. And at the time, they really didn't even have a lot of kids involved in the martial arts. Back then, you pretty much heard about karate. You heard about jiu-jitsu, maybe, but the Japanese style jiu-jitsu. And kung fu really wasn't even into play at that time.
Sure.
You know, I mean, you hear bits and pieces and it started to.
But very much my experience too is that most of the places, serious places, there was no room for children. You needed to be a young, you know, you needed to either be a teenager that was developed and could prove themselves, or you needed to be an adult. And
Yes,
generally
yeah.
and generally a male. It was generally mostly males, very few females in the systems that I trained in early on.
Right. And from what I remember, at one time, it was supposed to be this rule that you could not become a black belt unless you were at least 18
Right.
to
Correct.
21.
Correct.
And oddly enough, I made black belt around age 15.
Wow.
But I started early, and I mean, I would train every day. I would go on the roof. I lived in Brownsville, which was a rough part of Brooklyn. Years later, Mike Tyson lived around the corner.
Sure.
From
Sure.
to see Mike running around and so forth. But I was an adult by then. So
So when Moses Powell, the great Moses Powell, said that he didn't train you, what was the path you took after that?
well, he said that he wouldn't train me. He basically said, you know, come back when you are older because you're too young. So I showed up at the school the next day. It was at PS 258 in Bedford-Stuyvesant. So I'm sitting in the classroom. He comes in, everybody stands up and bow. I stand up and bow.
Sure.
And he said, what are you doing here? He said, I remember you. He said, didn't I tell you come back when you're older? I said, well, sir, I am a day older and I'm ready to train. He laughed. He said, go ahead and sit down and watch the class. So as he's teaching and he's going through blocks, I'm like, and I'm trying to do the move. And, you know, he looked, he said, that's not bad. He said, come here. He said, do that again. So then he said, let me show you something. And he did a roll, and he had one of the students do a roll, and he said, try that. Now, I had been practicing that roll since, from way back when I first saw it in judo. But when I saw him do it, I went home, I practiced it all day. I'm rolling on my couch, I'm rolling on the floor. So I did the roll, and bottom line, he was kind of impressed with that. And he said, you know what? I don't know if we'll let you train, but you can come and watch the classes for a while and we'll see what's going on. I wound up training.
That's great.
I jumped in the class one day and I started training, and that was the beginning of that. And at age 14 because I didn't miss a class, and I would train every day. And I still had friends that were involved in Shotokan karate. And then some years later, of course, the Green Hornet and Kato came on, and that was inspirational to me. So that just really motivated me to continue to push and train. And at age 16, 17, he took me on a international tour throughout the Caribbean, which changed my life because it took me out of the ghettos and let me see a whole nother perspective of the world. And it made me realize it was more to life than just what I would normally see: drugs, gangs, pimps, shootings, and, you know, all the poverty and stuff. But once we flew up and I saw, I mean, it was like crazy. It was like, I said, wow, I didn't know the world was this big. I had an idea, but it was like I had came up out of a bubble and I saw a whole new world. And I said, you know what? Not only do I want to be good, but I want to be known throughout the world.
Throughout the world.
Maybe one day, I want to be so good that I'll be recognized on TV. Maybe I'll become a world champ. You know, and I just had these aspirations, and by the grace of God, all that I kind of envisioned back then, to fruition. Yeah,
that's great. That is you know, we've heard this story before, and it is the transcending the power of the martial arts training to transcend a neighborhood or a style or even a country. You know, it's international, and it gives opportunity to really see the world in a different place, and gives people the opportunity to meet people from so many different aspects of the world, that you have this unifying. You may not speak the language that they speak, you may not necessarily eat the foods that they eat, but you guys, through martial arts, we have the ability to connect with those people.
We have the connection, yes. And I've throughout my years, I have traveled to Panama, Venezuela, Bogota, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, Brazil, Cayman Islands, throughout the Caribbean, and England, and just various places, and especially these Spanish-speaking places that I didn't really speak the language, and then other countries that I didn't speak the language. But once you came to the dojo and you bowed, it was just something there. You didn't even have
you find a way to communicate, right?
Respect was a universal thing. And one thing it taught me also, because when you're in New York, you know, you got a mixture of Jamaican, Panama, this. We used to, just joking around, call Panamanians beans. And I think we called the Jamaicans coconuts, and they called us Yankees, but it was friends, just joking.
Sure.
But when I traveled, when I got the opportunity to travel, I realized that internationally, I met some of the nicest people that I ever have encountered, and it gave me a whole different perspective in the martial arts as well as outside of the martial arts.
So you went on to do a tremendous amount of competitions. You have 23 world titles, 4,000 awards, trophies, 10-time Martial Arts Hall of Fame inductee. Were that the majority of your competition was in sparring? It was in fighting, or was it in a variety of things, weapons and forms and
variety? I would say a great majority of my competitions were in kata, in weapons, in board breaking, in self-defense. I did spar earlier in the years, and I did pretty well. I fought in Venezuela, in Bogota, Colombia, in Panama. I fought various parts of the United States. Back then, there was not a lot of exposure. And I was beating some top guys back then, but I was just a little young black guy in the neighborhood who, you know, we're not going to put this guy on the cover. Who is he? But I was beating these guys. And then I would see the magazine, and the same guy that I beat, and maybe I dropped down and threw a kick and caught him, bam, point. They had this guy, he's catching a kick, but then they're showing him saying his famous technique to sweep the opponent out and then follow up with a punch. Then they did an article on him sweeping some guy and punching. Like, wait a minute, I beat that guy. And they got him as, you know, so To answer your question, yeah, I've competed in so many different events. In just about every major event, I have won martial arts decathlons and martial arts pentathlons.
Wow.
It sounds kind of crazy because people say, "Oh, I won this, I won that," and I mean, I got so much stuff. I don't even have like one whatever of my stuff. I don't know if you could.
Yeah, I can see. Beautiful.
Well, that's just some of my latest stuff. That's the ISK World Self-Defense Championships. I think it was 2015, 2014, 2017. We got another World Championship belt there. One day I got a bunch of stuff in my other room. You
Beautiful.
know how it is. You got so many plaques and awards. You can't keep all that stuff
Yes,
in the house.
I know.
But
Grandmaster Parker's the U.S. Olympic coach. He
yes,
has more stuff in boxes than on the wall because
yeah,
you have to select it at a
yeah.
certain point. You got to select what goes up, and there's just not enough wall space for it. So
Yes. And it's
it's all
crazy.
reusable, but
Yeah, it's crazy to say, 3,000, 4,000, but I literally have, over the years, I mean, between plaques, awards, I got stuff here. I got stuff. Oh, it's crazy. Certificates, plaques, awards. I have stuff I don't even know. I could probably look around here. I got a plaque there. I got you
yeah.
know, but this is stuff that I have brought here to Florida. A lot of the stuff I gave away. I had a fire in my dojo, and
Oh
a
wow.
lot of the stuff got burnt up. We had a boiler explode in my house, in my apartment when I lived in New York. Thank God that no one was there. I had a trophy room. Everything sank in there.
Oh wow.
Yeah, in the basement, and water was up about 3 feet in the basement. I wasn't going down there.
No, of course not. So I want to cover. We have a little time and a lot to cover. So you made a
Yes.
transition from being this world, which you continue to be, world champion competitor, student of Moses Powell, student of a number of different styles, to the evolution into your system, which is and I don't want to say it wrong, the Sugar Ryu Jiu-Jitsu. Am I saying
Yes,
that correctly?
yes, Sugar Ryu, Sugar Ryu. Yeah.
Sugar Ryu. How did that evolve? When did that evolve? And tell us a little bit about what makes that different from the base of karate and jujitsu that you were studying previously. Obviously.
Okay, well, first of all, years ago, my instructor, he realized that I had this special ability and creativity, and he recognized that. And that was a great honor from Dr. Moses Powell. I mean, and such people as Grandmaster Peter Urban and Grandmaster, it was just so many, Professor Wally J, and different people who recognized, and not from a bragging point of view, but I mean, I was blessed and honored that they recognized my level of ability and my ability to create. Professor Wally J, who was one of Bruce Lee's friends and jujitsu
Sure.
instructors, he actually said I reminded him of Bruce. Not that I look like him, but just because of my creativity. But I guess from the beginning, when I was a kid, if I saw someone on TV doing a flip, I would go outside. If I saw a mattress, I would try that flip. And I kind of developed my gymnastic skills on my own. I was in the Army and Navy cadets where I learned how to spin a rifle and baton. And later on, I transitioned that into spinning weapons and learning how to strike. I have always had, athletic ability. I always liked flipping. I just naturally had good movement and the flexibility. It was okay, but I developed that later on. But what I wanted to do early on, because I actually got in a fight and I'm throwing kicks at this guy's head and I'm tapping him, beautiful roundhouse kicks. That's when I was pretty much into the Shotokan, but I'm used to just focusing. So I tap him and then bam, he hit me. I'm like, whoa, I throw a side kick, pop, I pull it, he hit me. So I said, man, this stuff ain't working. This karate stuff is not working for me. And even though I enjoyed the content stuff, it was not enough. And I just had something in me. Whereas I said, okay, if I could do a block, a punch, a kick, what if I did a roll and jumped up and kicked? And this is way before I saw any of this stuff on TV.
Sure.
Way before the UFC ever existed. I said, well, if karate is good, kung fu is good, taekwondo is good, you know, and they all have their stronger elements. Why can't I take some of the elements of the dynamic kicking of taekwondo, some of the nice judo throws, some of the fluidity of kung fu or aikido, or the power of karate? And what if I mix all that up into like a soup? That would be a dynamic combination. So I had these thoughts from early on. So I would just experiment. You know, I would do a kata, da, 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 da. Then I'll do a roll and come up and do a jump kick, pop, pop. And I said, what if I did that same kata and I had a stick in my hand? This is before weaponry was popular. And I've done a lot of weapons
Sure.
competitions back in the earlier days. But I started to develop my system, wow, I would say 1969, I started thinking about doing different things, and my instructor recognized it. And in about 1973, 74, he blessed me. He said, you know, he said, even though you're doing my system, Sanukas Ryu, he said, you have your own thing. And he used to call me Sugar. You know, and that's the nickname, by the way, given
I
to me.
see that everywhere. Yes.
Yeah, Sugar's the nickname given to me at birth by my mother.
Oh, really?
Along with Robert. Yeah. So Sugar, or Sugar Ryu, represents the birth of a new system, which, so going back to that, I just combined quite a few things. I always had this thing, I wanted to mix it. And then after seeing Muhammad Ali, when he fought Joe Frazier, Thriller in Manila and all that, I really became interested in the boxing. I said, man, that guy, he is pretty, I'm fast, I'm pretty, I can't possibly be whipped. I said, man, I want to be like that guy,
Yeah.
that guy, you know, because I really wasn't into boxing. I always said, you know, Karate Man could be the boxing guy in the day.
Sure.
It depends on who the boxer is and a karate
Sure.
guy. So if the karate guy is a yellow belt versus somebody like, even if he's more than a yellow belt versus Mike Tyson, if he gets hit, it's over, but that's a whole nother story.
Sure.
So yeah, so I decided to, as the years went by, combine karate, judo, aikido, weaponry, tai chi, PI, and gymnastics, and what I call urban streetology, self-defense. But I didn't just throw stuff together. I became proficient in my karate. I would study the hand movements of the top instructors. Okay, this thumb should be here. When you shoot, throw the punch, hands in the chamber, striking with the large knuckles, knee over the big toe. And, you know, just, I studied the fundamentals, the basics. So I wasn't just flip-flamming. So I had good fundamentals in karate. I had good fundamentals in judo, learning about harayagos, taito, shippon, sianagi, katakarumba, ukiwaza, whatever. So I learned the throws and I would practice. So I over the years, I developed my system, and I shared a lot of it with instructors in places like Trinidad and Colombia, Panama, and different places. And over the years, it just took shape, took form. I faced a lot of people, who are you to start your own system? But where did this system start? That's it. Somebody started it. I'm just a newcomer to the game, but it's nothing new under the sun, but it was my mixture.
Sure. And that's the elements of many things. And certainly if anyone who truly reads about Bruce Lee and understands Bruce Lee knew that Bruce Lee believed in, you know, I saw somebody say even about Ed Parker, the same thing, is that the people studying Kempo today, Ed Parker would have expected that it would evolve, that it would change, that it would become, because you take different things that work and you
absolutely.
So in your system.
But before I cut you,
sure.
I became good friends with Grandmaster Ed Parker. He saw me do a performance at Madison Square Garden, and he said to me, "You got something special there."
That's great.
And you know, he told me
he was a great admirer of what works and of understanding the evolving nature of martial arts and mixed martial arts.
Yes, but that was a great experience to meet him. He asked me to come out to California whenever I got the chance. I didn't have the money, and then finally, when I did get the opportunity and finance, unfortunately, he passed.
Sure.
But I'm sorry to cut you.
No,
Yes.
so does your system have does it have a system of rank and belts similar to
Absolutely.
traditional of styles? Is it that type
Absolutely.
of
Absolutely. I mean, it's a complete system. I mean, I have not only just regular katas, Indian katas, we have weapon katas, we have falling forms, we have uh, wrist lock forms. So you have to know the different levels of the technique. So for instance, to go for what I call gold belt, and some people call it yellow belt, but I said gold, which represents like the gold medal, number one, the best. Uh, Part of the requirement was you had to know your student creed. You had to know, pretty much be familiar with the rules and regulations, and all other things, clean uniform and all that. But you had to know, for instance, front kick, side kick, front rollout, sugar rule form number one. There was certain criteria, and then as you go to the next level. So yeah, we did have different levels, and I kind of changed the color structure of the belts to a degree to kind of suit the student, because I realized late on in my training that, like, perhaps like you, I mean, to go from white belt to yellow belt or whatever the next belt was, it took forever. And it wasn't like,
Sure.
okay, you pay your fee and then in 2 months you're gonna get your yellow belt. Nope. Your instructor, he put you through the test. He beat you down. And if you
Sure.
came back, he beat you down again. And then he said, okay. And it wasn't even all the signing the applications and stuff. It was like, okay, you get beat up. And then he said, she promoted to yellow belt.
That's exactly right. I know it well. I know it well.
Yeah, yeah.
So tell me, there's one thing to be a good martial artist and a good instructor, but there's an element of management of business that goes into running school and certainly running a style.
Yeah.
How did you find? And sometimes those things are not necessarily always in balance because people have different levels of skill sets of things that they enjoy and things that they're good at. How did you find, from your perspective? You obviously have a great entrepreneurial spirit as well as a great martial arts pedigree. How did you find that part of evolving your system from that standpoint?
In the beginning, for me, it was trial and error, because there was no EFC, or was no, these different building companies that also help you with the marketing and all that,
Sure.
yeah, it was none of that back in the day. So it was kind of trial and error. It was like, okay, the fee is $25 a month. You need to pay on the first, and if you don't, you will get whipped and be in class. That was the strategy.
And it was
That was
mostly going
it.
to be referral and word of mouth, obviously, because
Yeah, word of mouth. Sometimes not even a telephone book, but word of mouth. A friend would tell a friend. I would go to Prospect Park and I would train my students, and people would become interested. They would call me or come by the school, and that's how it worked. But years later, I learned about different marketing companies from going through different conventions and so forth, and speaking to friends and people who were successful, like Jeff Smith, who was very successful at what he did, and just different Dennis Brown and different people who were really doing well with their schools, and they would give me advice and tips on, not only the marketing, but just different aspects of the business
sure.
aspect. So it was kind of trial and error. I made a lot of mistakes, but as I progressed and got better at it, I did well, and I actually had a lot of success with schools over the years.
That's
Yes.
great. That's really great. I mean, listen, the mistakes are our best teachers, right? That's true of martial arts. That's true of business. That's true of life. So
Yes.
we learn the most from it. So tell me, bring me again. We're trying to put a lot of a career into a short interview.
Yes.
Bring me up till today. You're in Tampa. You're still active. You have Crosson International Enterprises. You're still training. I see you're still training. You're teaching. You're networking. Pandemic aside, but where is Grandmaster Sugar Crosson today, and what is
Uh,
what is your level of involvement in teaching and competing to today? What is your primary focus?
yes. Well, this very day, I'm actually getting ready to, after this interview, I have 3 uniforms that I'm making. I've been doing custom uniforms for years. I've made robes I made a robe for Muhammad Ali years ago,
Wow.
Mike Tyson, Eddie Murphy. Bill Wallace, I've made stuff for. So I'm going to be doing some sewing. Along with the sewing, I'm currently working on my book. Uh, Sugar Ryu Jiu-Jitsu, and then I'm doing another one, Urban Streetology for Everyday People, uh, self-defense, should I say. So that's one thing. I do personal training on Zoom. I don't really do big classes, but I have students in Costa Rica and Brazil and Bermuda that I do Zoom classes for, whether it's in weapons or just the boxing movement or the conditioning. Of course, I can't do the throws and all that, but before the pandemic and after the pandemic, I'll be traveling again internationally, but just to keep them abreast and keep them sharp, keep them with the movements and so forth. So I'm doing that. I'm doing, getting ready to really get into this well, I don't really do Facebook, but I want to do more of the social media things so I can share some knowledge. So I try to do inspirational little video clips, and I'm learning on the job
That's
training. I'm
great.
getting better, but I've been doing that. And then I have my own jump rope, the Crosson Jump Fit jump rope. I do some. I don't know if you see me on YouTube. I do
Yes,
some
yes.
crazy stuff with the jump rope, which over the years I've picked up from either being in training, same gym, or training individuals and being around them and picking up things, from back in the day, watching Roberto Duran jump, and he showed me some stuff. And then being around Sugar Ray Leonard, or even in the presence of Muhammad Ali. And, I just was always fascinated with the jump rope because it reminded me of a weapon that I have won many competitions with, which is the 3-section staff. That is a long piece of pipe that breaks into a 3-section staff with chains with knives on the end.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah. It's a nice weapon that I made. I used to make all weapons, by the way, but
That is, it's
yeah.
so impressive. You are truly a Renaissance man, which I have met many martial. There's something about the way the brain works that many of the true the real true martial artists have an entrepreneurial and a Renaissance spirit of being able to. I think it's part of what you talked about of being able to observe the moves and then recreate them is a very
Yes.
similar mentality to saying, all right, I want to create this weapon. I'm not going to necessarily try to find someone to do it. I'm going to analyze what needs to be done and I'm going to
Yes.
create it. It's the same part of the brain, I think.
Let me tell you something. I was walking down the street one day, and this is a true story. I had got information about a tournament coming up, and it was $50 grand championship. $50. That was a lot of money. I could take
Sure.
my girlfriend to the movie. I could buy some White Castle burgers.
Sure.
Back in the day. And so I'm walking down the street. I said, man, I'd like to go compete in that. What could I do that's different? I had never worked with a 3-section staff. I saw this pipe laying in the trash, and I took it out, and it broke apart. I said, man, so I automatically got this idea. If I put a chain there, I can make nunchuckers. But I said, what if I make 3 sections? So I did 3 sections. I put some screws in it, bang, holes in it.
Right.
I took some knives. I went to the hardware store, some razor sharp knives, and put them on the end. And I started swinging these things in my house.
Oh,
I
wow.
cut my leg at first, and I just practiced with them all day. I went to the material store later on. I bought some material. I made a gi. So I made a gi. I made this form up. I made this weapon. I went to the championship, and I won $100 because I won the kata also.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And then the uniform I made, I think I sold for like $35. So I
That's
got a good
inspiring.
payment.
It is inspiring. It's a whole different look at it.
Yeah.
Let me, in the interest, if you don't mind, in the next minute, I want to ask you a couple of just general questions we like to ask folks.
Okay.
Tell me your favorite kick.
Uh,
The most for you, your signature kick. front kick, side kick, round. What is your signature kick?
Used to be or now?
Well, you can say either way. Tell me whatever you think.
Spinning back kick.
Spinning back kick. I love it. Power kick. Great kick. Tell me about your favorite martial arts film. If you have.
Well, I'll just say off the top, Enter the Dragon.
Sure. I just actually watched it on New Year's Day, believe it or not. I rewatched it on New Year's Day. And you know what? I got to tell you, it really holds up. It really holds up.
It does. It's a classic. Suddenly, I want to leave your island. That would not be possible.
Yeah.
From straight out of a comic book.
That's great. That is great. The great Jim Kelly. So
yeah.
Tell me about your favorite weapon.
My favorite weapon was my 3 sections, which I don't use as much, but I love the bow staff as well.
Very good. Tell me about what do you consider to be your greatest martial arts accomplishment?
My greatest martial arts accomplishment was when my father was able to come to Madison Square Garden and see me perform in front of millions of people on TV, along with my instructor being there. So that was, and I had many accomplishments, but that was one of my greatest.
That's wonderful. That's a very personal and endearing accomplishment. What would you say is if you had to think about what you would want your martial arts legacy to be?
I wanted to be that I did my best. I was a true martial artist. I tried to inspire, uplift, educate, motivate, and teach on a positive note and teach the true Bushido and method of the martial arts.
I've been going to Robert Sugar Crosson University this last week, and all of those things are what everyone says about you. So that is very true.
Thank you.
Tell me
I paid them well.
Yeah, very good. Tell me about what is, I think my last question before we start to wind down is, what is the future what is the martial arts future for you? It's a hard one over the last couple of months because of the pandemic. People are like, well, I don't know what my martial arts future is, but
well, my martial arts future is
pandemic aside.
Yeah, mine's is to take it to the next level. I'm not sitting on the couch eating jelly donuts. I'm training, I'm creating, I'm rethinking things, relaunching, redeveloping my system and adding stuff to it. So when I come out doing seminars, I'm going to have a whole new thing. I'm going to be doing the books. I'm going to be doing the social media. I'm going to be doing motivational speaking. I'm right now, like I said, I'm creating new gis. So I'm learning new methods of sewing. So I'm just elevating, taking it to the next level. And that's what I encourage everybody else to do. Take it to the next level. Don't sit there. When I come out of this starting gate, when this pandemic is over, I'm coming out like Usain Bolt. Pew!
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Grandmaster Crosson, we are going to be with you this entire journey, and you and I are going to have some follow-up conversations. I want to do some articles, and you and I talked about the books, and we'll follow up and have those conversations. But I want to thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And I want to, if people want to follow you, I know you said you're not big on social media, but if people want to follow you, if they want to find out more about you, what is the best place for them to do that? Is it a website or
Sugar Crosson on Facebook, and I have it on Instagram. I'll be posting more stuff.
And it's the one that I saw. It's under Sugar Crosson is the one.
Yes. So they can go there, and my email is Crosson Robert@yahoo.com, CROSSON, Robert@yahoo.com. And last thing, just thank you, Mark, for reaching out and giving me this opportunity.
It's been wonderful. It's such an honor. Your reputation precedes you. You're inspiring. You're somebody who has made the most of the martial arts opportunity, and you are the living embodiment of, for young people, someone that they should look up to. And you've lived. Our magazine's called Taekwondo Life for a reason. We try to focus people who celebrate and who live their best life through martial arts. And you are an example of someone who is, our goal is to help profile people who can inspire, particularly our young people, which is what they need. They need respectable people to look up to, and you are one of those people. So.
Yes. I would love to do this again because I have so much I want to share.
Well, you know what? You and I are gonna after today. I'll follow up with an email, and you and I'll set up. We'll talk about some more specific topics. I wanted to give people the overview today. This is like chapter 1. This is Robert Crosson 101, and now we'll get into some more specific topics. So
yes, I want to say one last thing to the people. Stop explaining, stop complaining, just start training and maintaining.
That
That's
is a
it.
wonderful way to end. And I thank you. I'm going to take my hat off and bow to you. I thank you so much for joining us, sir. And
Thank you.
thank you. I look forward to it. And I'll look for an email from me. I'll follow up with you a little bit later on today. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank
God bless.
God
Take care.
bless you.
Thank you.